This sword has been provided by Windlass Steelcrafts for review. Whew, can you believe it? It has been 7 years. 7 years since I did my last sword review video. I really can't believe it's been that long. And a lot has changed since then, but kids are grown up a little bit more, I've got more free time, and I've been given some opportunities to review some new swords. So I'm really excited to kind of get back into the swing of things. In order to kick it off, I need to break out my trusty point of balance sword stand. And for the first sword that we're going to place in it, I have the Windlass Battlecry Cutlass. Let's take a look. Battlecry has added every swashbuckler's and pirate's favorite sword to its line, the Cutlass. The Cutlass was prized for its compact length, which was more suitable for the tight confines of a ship. This Battlecry Cutlass would do any seafarer proud, with a slightly upswept blade that has a clip point tip that's perfect for thrusting. The 1065 high carbon steel has a darkened, battle-hardened finish, so it's well protected from the frequent rust spots and stains that occur so often from everyday practice and exposure to the elements. The blade has a full tang and is tempered to a low 50s RC. This pre-sharpened blade has gone through rigorous testing. The hands-on nature of the manufacturing by master smiths makes this line unique. Sometimes you want a fun sword. To me, this is a very fun sword. The Battlecry Cutlass basically met all my criteria for what I wanted in a pirate sword. And I'll be honest, what I wanted wasn't necessarily a historically accurate sword. I didn't really care as much about that. I kind of, to me, the pirate sword I want is what I would see in like Pirates of the Caribbean, something a little bit more fanciful, maybe a little bit less historically accurate. I'd be okay with that. When I did searches for pirate swords over the past, I don't know, couple of decades, I was never really happy with what I could find. They always were more akin to like a naval officer's sword or a cutlass that was overly broad-bladed, a little bit too cartoony in that regard. You had a lot that just had, skulls and crossbones embossed on them, and that isn't really what I wanted. I want something that would just kind of blend into like a pirate costume, could sit on the hip of a swashbuckler and it not feel like it's overly decorative or out of place. And visually, that's exactly what this does. The black finish on the blade, which is of course a big kind of selling point for all the Battlecry line, I think it's perfect for this. You look at like their long swords that they had, or the battle axes or the daggers, and they're all that kind of dark black silhouette color. And you could argue I'd much rather have the nice kind of normal metallic finish, but to me, the black blade fits this perfectly. It's like the best possible look. The silhouette works real well. The fact that we don't have an overly decorative guard, absolutely perfect to me. It is simple. It's a simple design, executed well. So Windlass really hit the kind of perfect blend of simplicity and design and the Battlecry line and this cutlass to make basically exactly what I've always been looking for. And all the beauty, all the kind of perfection of the aesthetics for my personal taste is met fairly well with the functionality side. It's not perfect in my estimation, but it is perfectly serviceable. It's got some odd properties. If you look at the Sword Dynamics graph that I made for this, you'll actually see that the vibration nodes are actually kind of more towards the center of the blade, where the actual concussive point of concussion, or where the maximum amount of mass transfer and hit is kind of further out towards the tip. That's actually not usually the case. Most things I've ever looked at, you kind of have the two vibration nodes with the kind of in the middle is where that concussive point is. I'm not really sure why that is. I find that kind of interesting, and then having used this, it kind of just, to me, it speaks volumes about how this feels in the hand. It cuts really well though. I went out and did so many test cuts, actually more than I was intending to, to be filmed because, well, I stupidly decided to film on the single most hot and humid day in all of the summer, and it actually, my original footage looks something like this. Very, very foggy. It looks like I'm in some sort of dreamscape. Absolutely ruined all the footage I took, so I had to redo my entire sword cutting demonstration of this cutlass, as well as other swords, because I batched them all together. I was tired by the end of doing that filming. It was way too hot, and I'd done it way too much at that point. But it cuts really well, and that first time I got all the filming, I was, every cut I made was right through, in this case, the foam noodle. But in subsequent uses, get a little bit more tired, my edge alignment not so good. It doesn't, I was not doing as well. I don't think that's a problem with the sword. That's totally a problem with the user. Either I'm more tired, or maybe I'm 7 years out of practice. But I found it worked just fine. And you put it up against tatami, works just as well as you'd think. Very good edge, gets right through it, very clean. As long as you're using good enough form, it cuts perfectly well. But again, the balance, kind of the feel in hand, especially in a swing, you can feel the mast, and you can feel the mast trying to keep your hand going. It's a little bit harder to stop than you'd maybe want it to be. I don't think that's necessarily a drawback. One of the things you're getting with this is a nice kind of thick spine on the cutlass, so it has very little flex. I mean, you can see if I try to flex this, it doesn't really flex on the lateral there. And that means that, a cut's going to stay pretty straight. Once you're entering into a cut, it's not going to bend or turn. It's going to maintain its shape as a blade, and other things are going to have to move out of its way. So I think it's great for that. And when I said, like, sometimes you just want a fun sword, again, this is it. It's a very short sword, right? It's a cutlass, so it's meant to be more compact. It's meant to be potentially used in a compact environment like the interior of a ship. That's kind of the going idea, right? And I find this to be like call it European equivalent of a katana. Like, a katana is a lot of fun to cut with. It's always great to go get a fairly cheap katana, because those are a dime a dozen, and just go cut things, have fun with it, cut water bottles, cut pool noodles, cut tatami if you can get some. And this is very much the same thing. Like, I'd like to just go out and just hack stuff with this all day long. The construction on this thing is incredibly well done, because you've got the full tang blade, but not just full tang. It is a consistent thickness down the spine. It is sandwiched together in a way that is very rugged. This is the type of thing that I think can take a beating, and I don't think you'll ever get loose parts. And then if you do, it's a couple of screw turns to actually kind of tighten everything back up. So overall, the construction, I think, is absolutely fantastic, and is not going to be nearly as prone to kind of degradation over time as you might have in other swords that even Windlass makes, just general loosening. So I think the construction on this is spot on. Now, some people might have an argument with the price point. $230 to me, I think, is a perfectly reasonable ask. I can see where some people might do some shopping in comparison and say, why isn't it $200? I can see other cutlasses out there for a $200 price mark. And I can understand the sentiment of the argument, but I think that when you're getting everything you're getting with this cutlass, specifically if it's matching your aesthetic desires and your desires for kind of build quality, you're not going to get better at this price point. I think $230 is extremely reasonable, and it does come with a leather scabbard. It's a very basic leather scabbard. It's got no wood core, so it's very flexible. It has an integrated frog up here, but you can undo it, take it off. It's actually what I would do. I'd go get like a black baldric. I think probably Windlass also sells that, but I prefer this being something that's strapped over, like across my chest and hanging at my side than off of a belt. So with having a leather scabbard included, one that, by the way, is extremely tight on this thing, like you're not going to get a lot of slippage here. I'm going to hold it at the top and shake it. It's not moving. It takes a little bit of effort to pull out, but not terrible, and that means it's going to stay in. So great, great addition. You get that with it. I think most people expect that from Windlass. Almost all their swords come with the associated scabbards and whatnot. But yeah, $230. I don't think it's an unfair price mark. I think it's actually extremely fair, and given that it meets my desires for the aesthetics, the functionality, the build quality, I really couldn't ask for more. Definitely, in my opinion, the best thing to come out of the Battlecry line that Windlass has done, mostly just because it's precisely what I was looking for. So what are your thoughts on this cutlass? I'm really curious to actually hear from people who have purchased this or had one for a long period of time, to tell me how well it's held up over many months or maybe years of use. To me, the build quality seems great, but I've only had a very short period of time with it, so I'm very curious to see how it holds up. And also, I'm curious just to hear what everyone's thoughts are in general. This specific cutlass, the direction of the Battlecry line, I'd love to hear. So make sure you put comments below in the video. I'm going to go through and read and respond to them. That just about does it for this review. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it's back to the quality of what people are expecting of these types of reviews. I know it's been a long time. I hope it's a happy event for me to come back and do more of these. I definitely have more lined up, so expect more in the not too distant future. And don't forget to like, subscribe, all the rest of the stuff that comes along with YouTube. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.